Welcome to this place called Earth and the project Somatic Inversions, Behavioural Manipulations, and the Anatomy of Subtle Control. In this short paralysis framing, where no good option is the manipulation itself. In this short, we explore and expose the mechanisms that shape behaviour beneath awareness. Manipulators don't remove your freedom, they remove your options. Most manipulation doesn't require threats, punishment, or force. It only requires crafting a situation where every choice hurts, every path feels wrong, every direction carries danger, every option betrays something important to you. This is paralysis framing, not restricting your behavior, but restricting your agency. You become frozen, not because you're indecisive, but because no decision preserves your safety, dignity, or truth. The trap is not your hesitation. The trap is the frame. The brain under no good options. Research from decision neuroscience shows the prefrontal cortex collapses under contradictory demands. The anterior cingulate cortex triggers distress from impossible choices. The nervous system enters the freeze state when outcomes feel equally unsafe. Moral injury occurs when every available option violates values. Manipulators exploit this physiology. They engineer conditions in which the sympathetic system activates, while the parasympathetic system suppresses action. You're left in the immobilized middle, the perfect obedience state. The partner who frames everything as a double bind. Example, double binds in relationships. If you leave, you're destroying the relationship. If you stay, you must tolerate my behavior. If you tell me the truth, you'll hurt me. If you lie, you're dishonest. If you set boundaries, you're selfish. If you don't care. This forces you into silence, compliance, guilt, and emotional paralysis. The problem isn't that you can't decide. It's that the choices were designed to break you. The family that controls through moral dilemmas. Parents and family systems often frame situations as loyalty versus autonomy, obligation versus authenticity, duty versus self-protection, and support versus self-abandonment. For example, if you don't come, it shows you don't love us. If you set boundaries, it means you think we're bad people. If you speak up, you're tearing the family apart. These aren't choices, they're traps. The child learns that all options lead to pain, and paralysis becomes the safest possibility. As an adult, this wiring continues. The workplace that gives you options that aren't real workplaces use paralysis framing through. Take on this extra role or you won't grow. Stay late or fall behind the team. Speak up and risk your job or stay silent and suffer. Meet impossible expectations or appear incompetent. Organizational psychologists call this double bind management. Employees aren't frozen because they're passive. They're frozen because every option is dangerous. It's institutional paralysis as a control strategy. Cults and governments use impossible choices as obedience training. High control systems rely heavily on paralysis framing. Support us or you're a traitor. Obey or you're immoral. Leave and lose everything. Stay and sacrifice yourself. If the system fails, it's your fault. By creating moral dilemmas with no neutral ground, leaders force people into paralysis and then offer themselves as the only clear direction. This is how populations are controlled, not through force, but through no-win scenarios. The somatic experience of having no good choices. Paralysis framing triggers throat tightness, internal shaking, sudden exhaustion, dissociation, inability to speak, mental fog, collapsing posture, nausea, emotional confusion, and freeze more than fear. Your body stops moving because it cannot find a pathway to safety. The helplessness isn't psychological, it's biological. Why paralysis works better than intimidation. Intimidation triggers resistance. Paralysis triggers submission. When you feel trapped between equally painful choices, your nervous system follows the path of least internal harm. Appease, minimize conflict, withdraw, collapse, comply, and silence yourself. Not because you want to, but because your physiology is trying to survive the frame. Manipulators know this. They don't need to win the argument. They just need to control the structure of the decision. The inversion we were taught. Stop overthinking. Just make a choice. Why are you frozen? You're too indecisive. You're afraid of commitment. But the inversion is this. You weren't paralyzed because you couldn't decide. You were paralyzed because the choices were engineered to harm you either way. Your freeze wasn't indecision. It was your nervous system recognizing a trap. To close this short, the problem was never your hesitation. It was the frame you were forced into.